Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is James Quintero. I represent the Texas Public Policy Foundation. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address the body today on this common sense election reform. I'll be testifying in support of SB 533. In the ideal, bond propositions and tax hike elections would be decided at a time when the greatest number of people participate in the democratic process, so that whatever decision is reached more closely approximates the will of the majority. Now, unfortunately, the system we have in place today does not meet that standard. Instead, it permits massive debt to be decided by a relative few during non-peak election times. And I want to offer a bit of data to substantiate that point. As you'll see in your handout here, one of the things that I spent the interim doing is researching the May 2024 election cycle, and I collected data from different election notices, the Bond Review Board, and voter information documents. Now, the intent of the exercise was to better understand the actual amount of debt being considered during the May election cycle, as well as the number of voters involved in the decision-making process. And based on that analysis, I want to offer a few points relevant to today's discussion. First off, just setting the stage, during the May 24 election cycle, local governments offered up 325 propositions worth a total of $38.8 billion. Of those 325 items, voter approved 260 measures, which will ultimately cost taxpayers $33.3 billion in both principal and interest. Now, what's interesting about this is that the passage rate during the May 24 election cycle was 79.9%. That's actually a bit higher than in the November cycle, which was 73.3%. Now, among all of those items that were approved, many were passed by a relative few, and included in your document are the votes for and against each of those 325 items. Just noting a quick few, a couple that caught my eye was Banquette ISD's $86 million proposal received just 159 yes votes. Again, $86 million was approved by 159 yes votes. Elsewhere, the city of Donna's $114.7 million proposal received just 614 votes. Now, of course, those are just a few of the examples. There are many more in that handout, but what I hope all of this information does is illustrate the fact that large, expensive debt measures are being approved by just a handful of people in non-November elections. And I hope the body considers reimagining and reforming the current system so that we ensure greater public participation as well as community representation in the bond issuance process. So for that reason, I want to encourage the body to look favorably on SB 533, and thank you for your time.
And thank you for your testimony. Members, any questions for Mr. Quintero? Senator Hall.
Indirectly related to exactly what you're talking about, but changing the date so that you get more public participation. What your chart shows here, that when they post the amount of the bond, it's quite misleading to the public, because what they're actually going to have to pay is almost twice that amount in there. And while this is not the subject of it, but I think there's something to consider, that in the truth we've been trying to get to of people making an informed decision to honestly understand what is involved. What are your thoughts about requiring the amount to be repaid to be part of the information that's placed on the ballot so that they can make a truly informed decision?
I think that's very important information to include on any forthcoming propositions. Voters ought to know the full cost of whatever is being proposed so that they can accurately determine which direction to go. One of the reasons that I did this report and another looking at the November 2023 cycle was that I was actually a bit frustrated with what was being reported in the local media, because oftentimes, in fact, in almost every situation, the media would only report on the proposition amount that was being offered by the government, and that only reflects the principal amount, right? It discounted the interest item. And so what I wanted to know is, of all of the various items being put before the public, what is the full weight of these things? And so it took a little time to work through 325 voter information documents, but we were able to collect that information and provide it for public consumption. And I think what it shows is very troubling.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Hall. Members, any other questions for Mr. Quintero? Senator Parker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Birdwell.
James, I simply just want to say I think the work is exceptional. Thank you for such precision. It's rare that we see this level of detail, in all these different elections with not just the total dollars and so forth of the indebtedness, but the specifics of the vote and so forth. It really is a great resource for us to study this issue thoughtfully and thoroughly. So kudos to you and the Institute for the great work at TPPF.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Parker. Members, any other questions for our witness? Thanks for being here.